Hey y'all, it has been a while since we've done a World's Strongest Opinions, and it's just me solo today. And I apologize, no intro. There will be no outro. I've just decided to hop on here and add my perspective, try and give a little bit of advice. And it really kind of boils down to, I've been seeing a lot of anger, displeasure, and at least one person that is very, very distraught over the price to compete in strongman these days, specifically with OSG. Um, and I feel for you guys. Like, I sincerely empathize. I've been down this road. I felt it all myself. I got into strongman in like 2007, 8. I ate, breathed, and slept strongman for many years. I had high hopes for, winning a major title would turn the tide for me. And, I won 2018 USS Nationals, the overall championship in the heavyweights. And my dreams were basically crushed, so to speak, because I realized that after I won, going into that, I always dreamt that if I win, the doors are going to open and sponsorships are going to start pouring in, and I'm going to start getting invites and opportunities and all this crap. And part of that is because certain people in the sport had been saying that there's going to be these opportunities and all these promises, and the reality is none of them came to fruition. And I was devastated, really, when the realization that there were no sponsorships, and some of the guys that I beat, and like, bless their souls, like, I love these guys and nothing against them, but like, it was hard for me to swallow. It was like watching them get sponsorships and getting these awesome international invites, and I'm just like, hey man, I'm the guy that won. What happened? And but I mean, they didn't really. I mean, they were still having to pay too. Like, this is the realization once I won, was that there's no merit base where you're going to suddenly start getting prize money and your trips paid for. It just costs more money. Is the realization. And a lot of people I don't think really understand that going into strongman, that it is it's a pay to play sport. I mean, even the guys that get to worlds, like, other than the top 10, a lot of those guys aren't getting there for free. Like, they're still having to pay their plane tickets and whatnot. I mean, and I'm talking about world's strongest man. Some of the guys in the heats that aren't making it to the finals yet, and it is a harsh reality. And a lot of it is it's because there is no ROI for sponsors in strongman, because at world's strongest man level in the Arnold, right, there's a huge crowd and sponsors can pay, or can make some money off of sponsoring those. But at things like OSG, and I have nothing but respect for Lynn. And I know James Deffenbaugh is a big part of OSG and now a major part of Strongman Corporation. Lots of respect. I've known James my entire athletic career. Um, they're trying to build an athlete experience, and unfortunately, in some of those formats, it doesn't draw a crowd, and you're not going to with 12-hour days. And I know it sounds like OSG's made some changes so that there's some scheduling so that the people who do come to watch know when their athletes are going to compete, rather than sitting all day for 3 days in a row having no clue. But it's still not a great format. It's a very, very long day just to watch your favorite athlete compete for 2 to 5 minutes total. um and it's kind of the unfortunate nature of the sport. It's a very niche sport. And I personally don't think that it's ever going to grow. Like, I know I'm a naysayer, and how dare I have any negative opinion? But I think it's a legitimate opinion. Like strongman as a weight class sport, especially, is just, it doesn't really, me now as a fan, and kind of looking back at the many years, I competed as a U105, and chasing these kind of empty promises made by some of the main people in that were driving the sport, is that that strongman is a big person sport. It that's the attraction of it, is the world's strongest person. It's not the world's strongest smallest person, right? I'm not saying that as an insult to, weight class athletes. It's just the reality of the sport and the way the general public views it. And I've made this comparison numerous times. It's the same concept. Weight class strongman it would be the same concept as a super heavy CrossFit, right? And I say this a little bit jokingly, but also seriously, that nobody is going to care about the world's fattest fit guy, right? And the reality is that there's just not a lot of demand to consume the world's strongest smaller person. And that's why, the open weight classes at World Strongest Man, Arnold, Shaw Classic, whatever it's called these days, is just going to take the cake. That's going to get I mean, everybody saw that watched the show. As soon as the weight classes didn't have hardly any audience. As soon as the super heavy open class got there, the stadium was full. Right? There's a reality here that I think you know compete in strongman, man. It's a fun sport. The camaraderie, the people are awesome, but you really need to accept the fact that it's not a career. It's not going to be a career, not unless you want to dollars a year, which I know some people are doing. More power to them, but it's just not going to be what you're hoping it to be, and especially as an American, even as an open weight class athlete, right? There's a lot of guys out there. Like, I'm not prepared with names, but I know there's a lot of guys out there that are very good and very capable of doing well at the world's level. But there's so many of them. There's so many of you guys that it's going to take a lot of networking, a lot of social media presence, a lot of community presence to get your name out there and network to get to that, because it's not all merit based. And then it's never going to be all merit based. It's going to be a lot of who you know, to get to where you want to go. And Strongman Champions League is a great example of this, in that, there's a lot of times where they have spaces to fill that they'll invite anybody that can afford to get there, because it's still pay to play. And I mean, and they're not right. They're not World of Stars, but they have a great production. They have great sponsors, but they can't pay for everybody. And that's just the reality. So, a lot of guys do go to SCL because there are opportunities there for the guys that can pay to get into the shows. And you need to kind of look at that. But at the end of the day, I want to just address, like, I think it's important too also to note that, you know, Lynn and James and their whole team, that whole crew puts a lot of time and effort into putting on those productions and putting on those shows. And, even though it's frustrating as an athlete to, to get to work so hard, put so much energy and time and literal blood, sweat, and tears into becoming the best athlete you can, and then realizing, like, it's just going to cost you more and more money, and there's really no money to be made. I get it. Like, I empathize tremendously with you guys that is a huge frustration. But on the flip side, right, guys like Lynn and his team, they don't have to do what they're doing, and they put a lot of time and effort into doing it, and it costs money. And without sponsorship, somebody has to pay, and unfortunately, that model has become pay to play, especially in the United States. But even with that said, athletes, right, complaining about it online, and I know a lot of people aren't going because the prices are getting too high, and that's like, we vote with our dollars, right? Always. If people are willing to pay, right, it's going to perpetuate the business model. As long as people pay, businesses are going to continue charging, right? And until there is some kind of revolution, paradigm shift in the sport as a whole by the athletes, it's going to continue. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to like blame, the organizers, because they're doing what the demand suggests is wanted, right at the end of the day. And it's a two-way street. But ultimately, there's other organizations like PSL that's doing great work, right? It is not Clash on the Coast, but it is the legacy Clash on the Coast, and those guys started something really great. Um, and the model, I think, still has a lot of potential to draw a crowd and better sponsorship. And so, we need like I'm not a strongman now, but athletes now need to take some time and really decide what what you really want out of the sport. Do you want an experience for you that is just like, hey, I feel like I'm competing on a big stage, which is what OSG is, right? It's a beautiful stage, it's beautiful equipment, it's extraordinarily well run. Like I think you're getting a lot of value out of that for what you pay. I get that it's very expensive, but there's a lot of time, effort, and planning that goes into that. But at the end of the day, you have to determine what you value more. Is it you want to have a good experience when you compete, but there's more to just being an athlete. I've said this before on the shows that SCL. One of the first things I was ever told when I ended up at U105 Worlds in 2018, the producer told me, he said, there's more to being an athlete. It's not just being strong, it's having a good stage presence, a good character, and being able to sell yourself and be entertaining. And that's what draws the crowd, right? And so, if you want to be an athlete, you want to make money and not have to pay a ton of money, right? I think the values in the sport need to shift, and it has to be a community effort, right? It can't just be a handful of people. Like the whole community is going to have to take a stance and start supporting organizations um, that are giving more than just selling. They're doing more than selling to you, like the customer and athlete experience. And organizations like PSL are doing that. And also Luke Davis in the UK with Chaos Productions doing a fantastic job. So there's those things exist out there, and it's going to take the athletes to start demanding that and refusing to pay for something that they don't want. And guys like Lynn are going to listen to that, right? He's going to have to if he wants to stay in business. Ultimately, I mean, if there was that shift, but again, as long as athletes continue to pay and keep seeking out those kind of experiences, like hey, Lynn's justified in charging what he's charging, right? Because people are paying it. Um, and at the end of the day, that's what matters most, right? You vote with your dollar. But again, I don't want to keep beating that horse. I empathize with you guys. I've been through it. It's an unfortunate truth of strongman. For a lot of people, you probably just need to realize, like, hey, this is a lot of fun. I want to do the best I can, but um, there's no big like light at the end of the tunnel where you're gonna get paid and make a living off of a strongman. Very, very, very few, probably less than 1% are making decent money doing it. And even that's limited by their ability to continue competing at the very, very top. Um, and then getting back to weight class, like I'm going to say this, I'm never going to stop saying this to people. Like, if you really want to make money, I don't think strongman's where it's at. Like CrossFit is, like I know like CrossFit has like there's like this, I don't know, proverbial war between strongman and CrossFit, but CrossFit has already made lightweight strongman profitable. Like there's a lot of money in it. Um, and they do it really well, and the general public is very, very interested and invested in that. I just think that it's a better route. Like, do you like as long as shows are being put on that you can go pay and play, and it makes you happy, do it. But if you really want to go somewhere as a weight class athlete, I really, really recommend CrossFit. They've done an amazing job of turning Strongman into a very profitable organization. Um, and then if you're super heavyweight, man, you got to network. You got to network. You got to have a good presence. You got to, produce a lot of content. You got to grind, man, and you got to be committed to it and take the ups and downs as they come. But that's my word. I wish you guys all the best.